Tootte Rishte Darakte Ghar, and The Battle Against COVID Diary of a Bureaucrat. May I invite our guests to the stage.
Hello everyone. Good morning to all of you. It's a story by Sajjan Yadav. I went through this book and I realized this is one of the most comprehensively written book I have ever read on vaccination, especially when it comes to the development of vaccine in India. It starts with very interesting stories about smallpox vaccine, how it was administered when it was not a vaccine at all. Still people developed some way to deal with that pandemic. Then it talks about, in full length, it talks about all the programs, all the ways in which India developed vaccine, the people who are responsible for making so many vaccines that save so many lives throughout the world. And once again, I would say this is very comprehensive and one of the best books I have ever read. So I must compliment the author, Shri Sajjan Singh Yadav sir. Sir, it's a privilege, sir, to speak about the book. I'll directly come to a few questions, sir. If you want to say something, I can, you can say, and then I'll start the questions, sir.
Hello. Yeah, good morning everyone. Nothing much except that I'm very privileged to be here sharing this stage with such an accomplished person who has written 4 books. So it's so difficult to write while serving the government because there are so many pressures and the time is very, very limited. And especially when you are in the initial years of service, when you are in the field assignments, it's almost impossible. So I would like to just start by complimenting you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We all would like to know how you got the idea of writing this book, sir.
I think it was a time when everybody wanted to know about vaccines. So in the year 2021, I think the vaccine was the most searched word. It was the most kind of people wanted to know more. There were quest for knowledge, and the first wave had subsided. It in April 2000. So the second wave had just begun, and at that time, definitely there were already vaccines available and vaccination drive had started in India also as well as in many countries. But still there were so many issues of vaccine, hesitancy, so many searches about vaccines, so much of misinformation spreading around vaccines. So I thought, let me explore, let me research this subject and find out more about vaccines. Let me tell people about vaccines. So my initial idea was to write some kind of pieces for the editorial in the newspapers. But when I researched about it, I found that the subject is so interesting. We have so many interesting anecdotes, stories. There is a story behind every vaccine which has been developed, be it smallpox, plague, polio, rabies, or later on other diseases. And there are stories of hard work, sacrifice of scientists, stories of leadership. And also it was very amazing how these vaccine institutes have come up, both in private as well as public sector. And besides this, how India has kind of had a roller coaster ride, but now we are a vaccine superpower. We produce 2/3 of the world's vaccines, and every second child gets a vaccine manufactured in India across the world. So when I did more and more research, I thought, let me tell this story not only to our people, let me tell this story to the entire world, how we have traveled this journey and how vaccines save millions of lives every year.
Sir, can you tell in brief, because you have already written very interesting things about the development of vaccine, can you tell something about how the first vaccine got developed? And as you said, there are people, there are scientists. If you can mention 2 or 3 of those, sir.
Yeah, my first chapter starts with that, the story of the first vaccine. It was against smallpox. And let me tell you, smallpox was very, very dreaded disease. It was much, much dangerous. than COVID that we have experienced. It used to kill millions of people every year, disfigure millions of people, and it used to wipe out populations. And there was, even the doctors were not aware how to kind of take care of this disease. So the story starts very simply. A girl gets a cowpox. Cowpox is a disease of cow. So a young girl who works in a dairy, she gets cowpox. She goes to see a doctor. Doctor is treating her, giving her some medicine, but the girl is very happy to get cowpox. Why? The doctor asked, why are you so smiling so much? What's the reason behind it? She said that I have had cowpox. Now I will remain beautiful forever. I'll never get a pock-marked face. Doctor was confused. He asked why. Then the girl said, because I have had cowpox, so now I will not have smallpox ever in my life. But the doctor didn't believe her. And he prescribed certain medicine and the girl went. But the doctor's intern who was working there, a young boy, Edward Jenner, he listened this conversation. It got imprinted in his mind. And then when he went to the countryside to practice independently, he heard some similar stories that if you get cowpox, you don't get smallpox. So he decided to do an experiment. That was the first experiment for development of a vaccine. So he got a cowpox patient. So he extracted small amount of fluid from the pustule of that patient and injected it into a young orphan boy who was around in that village. And the boy got, of course, cowpox because of the vaccine. It is a very mild disease. And then he recovered very soon after a mild fever and few pustules on the hands. And then Jenner, after a month, injected the boy with pus of a smallpox patient. And as he had postulated or hypothesized that the boy will not get smallpox. And ultimately the boy did not get smallpox. He had no fever, no symptoms of smallpox. So then Jenner conducted a few more experiments like this. And finally he published a paper that yes, if you inject cowpox material in a human being, the person gets immunity against smallpox. So that's why the term vaccine also came, because vaccine comes from vecca, which in Latin means cow. So it's kind of I would say, gift of cow to human beings, the first vaccine and the concept of immunization. Because of that, we are now saved against so many dreaded infectious diseases.
So, sir, no vaccine or nothing can be achieved without people coming together and without collaborative efforts, sir. So, whom do you think is responsible for development of vaccine in India, and who are the people whom we can credit for this development, sir?
I would like to go a little back and to the prehistoric times. So the world knows that Edward Jenner discovered vaccine. But do you know that Indians knew about immunization, about vaccines centuries before Edward Jenner? And we had a very innovative kind of a system in ancient times starting from 300 before Christ. There was a technique called variolation, which was very similar to vaccination. And in variolation, what our ancestors used to do, that there were some people called tikadars. Tika is vaccine, as you know. So they would collect the scabs and pus of a smallpox patient, dry it for a year, make it a powder. So why drying? Now we all know that drying leads to attenuation or weakening of the virus. So they used to dry it, and then the next year they would start their journey of vaccination. They would go to the villages with that potli containing the powder, and they will make a small cut in the hand of a person who desired to get vaccinated. Then take a piece of cotton, put some powder on it, put some gangajal on it, and then tie it on the wound of that cut of that person. So slowly that virus will go in the bloodstream, and the person will get a milder form of a disease, not full-fledged smallpox, but then get lifelong immunity. So this is how, that is the contribution of our, I would say, forefathers, that is still not recognized by the world. But if you come here to the modern vaccinations, so there have been so many vaccine leaders, I would say. The first modern vaccine in India was developed in 1800 century against plague. It was by Hopkins. So, but thereafter we had lot of vaccine leaders, lot of scientists who had toiled, worked very hard, innovated, and ultimately I would say it's a combined effort of our entrepreneurs, of our scientists, of our leaders, that we now produce 62% of the world's vaccine supply. We have shown to the world our vaccine power in COVID times, and everyone now recognizes, and there's a bright future for India in the field of vaccination only because of that combined efforts of the leadership, both scientific, political, as well as of the entrepreneurs.
So, we were the first country to complete 100 crore vaccination, then 220 crore vaccination. How is this feat achieved, and what happened during second wave of COVID? There was some scarcity of vaccine, but with very brief span of time, we realized that there was no scarcity, there is no shortages. How that was achieved?
Yeah, so I think when COVID outbreak happened and we were all struggling with the first wave, sitting inside our houses, locked down, no one could imagine that within a year we will be able to vaccinate 100 crore people or so. And this definitely was a Herculean task, no doubt. It was so difficult to achieve. But I would say, again, it comes from both the sides. It comes from, again, three sides, I would say. First, definitely the leadership of the country, our Honorable Prime Minister, who himself took the lead, who himself motivated the entrepreneurs and scientists. We provided so much of funds under Mission COVID Suraksha to Scientific Ministry, that Department of Biotechnology, for assisting in development of vaccines by entrepreneurs. Our Prime Minister visited the vaccine facilities to see himself that how ready we are. Second, obviously, is our scientists. Like we were very quickly, we were able to isolate the virus. ICMR did this isolation of COVID-19 virus. They collaborated with Bharat Biotech, and then they started production of our own vaccine. Because it was very important to have our own vaccine, not only vaccine manufactured in India, but vaccine developed by India. Because we have seen vaccine nationalism, there was hoarding of vaccine by developed countries, they hoarded 10 times of their requirements. So if our own vaccine was very important bargaining or very important trump card with us. So for that, the credit goes to our scientists of ICMR, and then obviously the credit goes to the entrepreneurs like our Serum Institute, Adar Poonawalla and his team, who quickly got into collaboration with Oxford and AstraZeneca, and they got that permission to manufacture Covishield in India. Then obviously the Bharat Biotech people, and followed by them there were so many other institutions, other manufacturers who came up with new and different kinds of vaccines, and we achieved so many records in development of vaccine, like world's first DNA vaccine we discovered, like first nasal vaccine against COVID we have come up with. So all these three, I would say, the leadership, both at the government, you would say political, non-political, bureaucratic, the scientists, as well as the entrepreneurs of the country. They have made us proud. They have saved us from this dreaded disease. I would give contribution to all of them for development of vaccine. But for vaccination, there is another set of leadership.
I believe in the efficacy of a vaccine. I got all the doses administered. But sometimes some doubt remains in the minds of few people, that are there some side effects? Have all the protocols been followed when we were developing this vaccine?
I would like to say very clearly that this vaccine or whatever vaccines are available against COVID, they don't cause any serious side effect. It's very, very, very rare. There has been no correlation. Definitely, every vaccine has side effects, small, mild side effects like fever or pain or sometimes some clotting of a vessel. So these kind of side effects are there, which have been studied, but they are very minor. But major side effects, like there are so many media reports. I was reading a report about a footballer who collapsed, and then people attributed that he was vaccinated against COVID. That's why he got a heart attack. But you see, how many people are vaccinated now in India? We have administered 220 crore plus doses. How many people are not vaccinated? So, if someone will get a heart attack, there are very high chances that the person is vaccinated. So, that is pure statistics. There is no correlation that because of the COVID vaccine, he got a heart attack. The research shows that because of the COVID-19 virus, there is pericarditis, that inflammation of the heart muscles. But that is because of the virus and not because of the vaccine. So that inflammation of the heart muscle, it affects the heart functioning. It can lead to a heart attack or other symptoms, but not because of the vaccine. So, and I would like to add that the anti-vaccine sentiments are not new. They are as old as the vaccines themselves. There have been anti-vaccine lobbies. There have been false information. There are also doctored, or I would say sponsored research against vaccine. But there have been some instances in the past for certain vaccines which had some side effects and later withdrawn. But now the vaccines which are present this time, especially the COVID vaccines, I don't think they lead to heart attack or any severe consequences.
What is the role of various PSUs in development of the vaccine?
See, the vaccine, when this COVID-19 pandemic broke out, it was a very grave challenge to have developed sufficient number of vaccines, not only one vaccine. And that's why the government came up with Mission COVID Suraksha in Department of Biotechnology. And through this biotechnologies organization which you have mentioned, we have provided funds to a number of organizations for development of vaccine candidates and finally bringing vaccines from lab to the arm of people. So vaccine development, as many of you would know, it's not a simple process. It takes almost a decade to develop vaccine. First we have to see in the lab whether there are sufficient kind of vaccine candidates we have to identify. Then you do the animal challenge studies, you do inject in animals, then you decide the doses in the animals, then you go through a series of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials, and the dropout rate or failure rates are very, very high. So all these organizations, both private as well as public, they needed funds because it's a risky business. You invest money and finally the vaccine doesn't succeed, so you lose all that money. So the government provided them funds for all these studies, for animal challenge models, for clinical trials through BIRAC and Department of Biotechnology. And our PSUs, I would like to say that initially PSUs have also seen their golden period and they have seen their lows. So there was a time when all the vaccines were produced by PSUs only all over our country. The Britishers, starting from the British era, they had set up so many vaccine institutes, and Government of India again augmented those vaccine institutes, and they played a very, very important role in vaccine production, and they are still playing a role. And COVID-19, I would say, was a blessing in disguise for PSUs because they again got that kind of a focus. Vaccine producing PSUs, they got funding, they got the technology transfer, they got this license from ICMR, Bharat Biotech, and they have also started producing vaccines. So they too have made very important contribution in the vaccine supplies which we are having today.
there is always a lingering thought in the mind of many people, including me, whether this virus is natural or it was manufactured. Because to me it appears that this virus is not natural. But this is just a personal thought. I know writing such a great book, you can tell something about it.
How many of you think that it is not a natural virus? How many of you think that it is not, it's a man-made virus? See, the opinion is divided, yeah. Which you have. So, see, the emergence of COVID-19 virus is still, it is not yet, I would say, fully established from where the virus came from. So, all of you probably know that initially it was said that there is a bat market in Wuhan, China, from where someone bought a bat and then made some food or dish out of it, and it got transmitted from that vegetable market in Wuhan. So the kind of theory was that it is a natural virus from bat, like other viruses jump. There are so many zoonotic diseases now which jump from animals to human beings. So this virus is same as that virus. But then there were other theories also. And other theories gain force because there is a vaccine, there is an institute of virology in Wuhan itself, there is a lab. And there is so much of research on viruses going on in that lab. And there is a scientist, very famous scientist also, Miss Jangeli, who is kind of famous for research on this bat virus. She is also known as Bat Woman. So, and there are reports that before outbreak of COVID, about a month and 1.5 before outbreak of COVID, many scientists of that institute, they suffered from COVID like symptoms and they were admitted to the hospital. So this kind of reports by many of the intelligence agencies like US agency and British intelligence agency are on record that there was some leakage of virus which was similar to COVID virus, and because of that the outbreak started. And the WHO also constituted a team, but there were many question marks on the report that was submitted by that team, both because there was more than 50% of the scientists included in the team were Chinese, and also there was a lot of reluctance by China. So it took so many months, almost 9 months for the team to start working, and then the important data was also not shared. So in such kind of transmission, there is, because they believe that this bats which have this COVID-19 virus, they are about 400-500 kilometers away from Wuhan. So it couldn't have come to the Wuhan vegetable market. There has to be an intermediate host who got the disease and then transmitted to human. But the WHO team was unable to find the intermediate host so far. So they have indicated in their report that though the chances are that the virus is of a natural origin, and however the report is still questionable. So both the theories prevail as of now, that it is natural origin as well as that it is leaked from the lab.
So if we see the managerial side of administration of these doses, we see that there was an IT platform developed by Government of India, CoWIN, and then there were other strategies also. Can you tell something about how this IT platform helped in administration of the vaccines in such large numbers?
I would say that a small kind of basic platform was available even before COVID for monitoring this universal immunization program. So India has one of the biggest universal immunization program in the world for immunizing children and pregnant women. So to monitor that, there was a WIN application, WIN. But when this COVID happened and there was that vaccination drive was to start, so it was very important for everyone to have a database so that the how many people have been vaccinated, pace of vaccination, as well as it's very important to get that vaccine certificate because it acted like a passport. So if you have a manual system getting that certificate, you work in administration, all of us deal from both the side, other side, this side of the table or the other side of the table. Such manual getting certificates from doctors and monitoring and getting knowing authenticity of it was really, really very difficult. So I would say that this was a very bold decision on the part of the government to have this app and have the vaccine information only through the app. Because if you have a hybrid system, that doesn't work. And there were so many challenges at that time, both because of the shortage of vaccines as well as because of the connectivity issues that people were not getting appointment for vaccines. We have ourselves experienced. I have written in this book one small section which is like fastest finger first. So it was like Kaun Banega Karodpati, Amitabh Bachchan show, that when the vaccine doses were made available on the portal, everyone was kind of trying to get the dose and trying to click that website. So whoever got it fastest, so got the vaccine appointment scheduled. So, but ultimately, after initial hiccups during the second wave, when the vaccine eagerness was very, very high, the COVID app has worked wonderfully well. We all know how many doses have been administered. We can anytime take out the certificate. The authorities can take out the certificate. So apart from monitoring and supply chain management for vaccines, this has been of a tremendous help to the citizens also.
India is a vast country, sir, and we see during elections, we all of us have seen various images where people are going with the machine and getting the election conducted across the country and in various places, especially hilly states and which are far, far away from the mainstream cities. So what was the strategy, how this vaccine was sent to those distant places and people could still be vaccinated in far, far areas, as I mentioned, Arunachal Pradesh, Lakshadweep, Andaman Nicobar and various other villages which are far away in hilly areas.
Yes, yes. Yeah, see, we have an universal immunization program, you all know. But what is the number of people or number of children vaccinated? Less than 4 crore, that too in a year. And here the challenge was to vaccinate 100, 200 crores in that time span. So it could not have been achieved by that strategy of universal vaccination program, universal immunization program. So the elections, we are known world over to conduct election in a very timely manner and making sure that every citizen, even living on footpath or living on the peaks of Himalayas, gets voting on the same day normally, one day or in the face, on the assigned day. So the election system and election machinery was found to be best suited for this kind of massive drive, I would say. Because you have conducted election, I have conducted I think 5-6 elections. So we all know that the machinery is very well oiled, they know the responsibility, they are very clearly laid out. So one part was administration of vaccines and second part is management of logistics. So in administration of vaccine, that machinery worked wonderfully well because we have a polling booth, you all know, which has about 1,000 voters or 2,000 population or something. So, and for that there is a vaccine, there is a polling team which has an assigned rights, a presiding officer, a polling officer, first polling officer, second polling officer. So on the same pattern we designed this campaign, that there was a vaccination officer 1, there was a vaccination officer 2, then there was a vaccination center in charge, and we also have booth level officers, as you know, who know every household, every person in that locality. So all that entire machinery was mobilized to make people aware, to bring them to the vaccination centers and to vaccinate them in a very, very kind of a serious scientific manner without causing inconvenience, without kind of increasing the risk of spread of the disease. So this was the administration part. And second, we have this logistic part. So one is maintenance of cold chain. Though we don't require very ultra low temperatures for our vaccines, fortunately, but you still have to maintain that cold chain. So that supply chain was, that cold chain was augmented, and all over the country, ice line refrigerators were procured, ice boxes were procured. It was a huge logistic challenge. And third was transport of vaccines. So you have seen that vaccines traveled by air, by train, by drones, by boats, in whatever way possible. And I was delighted to see that I worked in Tawang on China border in 2000, 2002. And there was very inaccessible area called Mago Thingbu. In my book, there is a picture that the deputy commissioner himself with his team traveled to, I think he trekked for 2-3 days and reached that shepherd family and vaccinated people. So that way our machinery made sure that people are not left behind, especially those living in inaccessible areas, difficult to reach people.
So, in this journey, I should not be revealing everything which is in the book, but I feel from vaccine hesitancy to vaccine eagerness, we reached to that stage, where people were ready and they were willing to come for vaccination. So, in this whole scenario, sir, what was the role of leadership in this campaign and in this achievement, and from taking India from vaccine hesitancy to vaccine eagerness, where the whole world was seeing people who were not willing to take vaccine, but in India, people showed so much of great fanfare and eagerness to go and get vaccinated.
I think, Tarun, both were big challenges. When the vaccination started in January 2021, yeah. So at that time, vaccine hesitancy was a big challenge. Though there were so many people eager, but there were many people reluctant to take vaccines. So the offtake was really low, except for health workers. The offtake of people, because we started with health workers and with all elderly people, so it was very low. And at that time, the leadership definitely played a very, very huge role. They themselves, whoever was eligible, I would say, not everyone, they got themselves vaccinated in full media glare. Then our Honorable Prime Minister and Chief Ministers and all the leadership, they took personal meetings, motivation, and even in April, when the vaccine uptake was really very low, the Prime Minister called for organizing Tika Utsav across the country on Baba Ambedkar's birthday. And thereafter, because of the second wave, everyone wanted vaccines. So there was a time we had Tika Utsav because people were not coming forward to get vaccinated, and after a month or so, we had people flooding the vaccination centers to get vaccinated because of they were scared of the virus and the second wave had erupted. At that time, the role was very, very important because the leadership made sure that no one jumps the line, no one jumps the queue. So even the Prime Minister took the vaccine when he was eligible as per the general guidelines. No political leader or anyone dared to kind of go for vaccination by jumping the queue, and the instructions were very clear from the top that we have to abide by the rules. So that way the vaccine eagerness was managed by having that kind of a self-imposed discipline and making sure that people get vaccination on turn only.
So I have asked many questions and that tells about the book, but we would also like our audiences, they are waiting eagerly to ask questions. So we would take the question from here, sir, and then madam.
About sponsored research. Sponsored research against vaccines.
Yes.
What can you just elaborate on it?
So you have to read my book. There is an incident here, mentioned here. I will not give exact details, but there was a court case against a vaccine manufacturer in United States. Okay, because the company was sued that the vaccine has some side effect, measles vaccines. So the litigants, I would say lawyer of that company, he approached a doctor. The doctor did some research, fake research, and then came to the conclusion that because of the vaccine there is mental retardation and other side effects in children. That research was even published in Lancet, which is, yeah. And that Lancet published it, and it led to lot of protests against the vaccine and lawsuits and other things. And later on it was found that the vaccine was sponsored, the lawyer and the doctor were together, and then the Lancet itself withdrew that article.
So why I asked this question was because during that period when I was doing some research also, being a microbiologist, I was trying to search whatever disease you found. For example, I wanted to know whether COVID vaccine has got any effect on patients who are liable to have rheumatic arthritis. And then I found a research, 100 volunteers, they have done that research, this many people got, and the conclusion was that yes, it aggravates rheumatoid arthritis. And then you look for something else. Almost whatever you look for in Google, you will find that yes, this vaccine aggravates that. And then I started having some doubts, and then maybe now you have clarified that. Rheumatic arthritis also I checked, I can tell you that it says that it's aggravated by this vaccine.
Yeah, normally the vaccine, anti-vaccine articles, they are not peer-reviewed normally and small size based, and anti-vaxxers give them so much of prominence, and because it is something which is, I would say, different, so people are very eager to know something, whether because they have doubts in their mind, they want to clarify doubts, so they go for, when they search Google, they get those kind of articles, and they circulate those articles more than the positive ones. How many of you would circulate an article which is saying vaccine is safe, take the vaccine, versus vaccine is not safe, it leads to heart attack? So it will be immediately circulated in social media. So
I thought that you will mention about the nucleotide sequence of the furin site on the protein, which answers that question.
yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That first incident which I narrated, the girl came for treatment to a doctor for cowpox. It was 1765. Yeah, and the experiment which was conducted by Dr. Edward Jenner, it was in 1796. It mentions the dates also when it was in United Kingdom. The exact name of the place is mentioned there.
Paul, good morning everyone, and thank you so much for clarifying in such detail so many things we didn't know or imagined or wondered about. So I am very grateful. I want to ask you one question. I've been given all the vaccines, and I have to also tell you that the Hamidia Hospital was exemplary, and I have spent a significant time in my life abroad, and so I say to everyone that though I have medical insurance because of my son-in-law, I will go to Hamidia Hospital if I need it. So that is one very positive step in medical care. What I want to ask you is, I am vaccinated. To what extent am I safe from those who are not vaccinated? Can they still carry something to me? I'm being a little, like almost 70 years old.
Yeah, there are two aspects, ma'am.
Yes.
One is that those who are carrying the virus, and they can transmit the virus to you, no doubt. But because your body's immune system is primed because of the vaccine. So either you will not have any symptom or you will have mild symptoms because the body's army will take over the disease organism very soon. So that is part one. Second is about mutations and new strains. So if you have been vaccinated against one particular strain, but someone is infected with another strain which is not covered by the protection provided by the vaccine. So if that strain is transmitted to you, definitely you are likely to have the symptoms and disease. So this virus is mutating very fast, but normally such viruses, they mutate and their virulence goes down and they disappear. So that has happened in many instances in the past also, SARS-1, Ebola, that Middle East respiratory syndrome virus. So they appear, they cause the damage, and slowly the virulence goes down or we get vaccines. So you will be protected. You may have symptoms, but that would be very mild compared to unprotected person. Thank you.
One last question, if you allow me to take.
Yes, Achha, that is her call. Louder, please.
Sorry. I remember reading, I think in this book in 2012 by David Quammen called Spillover, he mentions almost exactly what happened. He says that the next pandemic will occur in a wet market in China. So this is not going to be the last pandemic. There probably is going to be another thing, not a strain of COVID. So what is it that we have, what is it that we failed at this time? And what should we be careful about for the next time? Because this has been a huge learning for us as a whole world.
Yeah. I would say you are very, very right that this is not the last pandemic because of that animal-human interaction, that the pace of spread of zoonotic disease has kind of accelerated. And in this case also it came, and it has many learnings that you are saying we have failed, but I would say we have learned so much from this. First is about the protective measures and that social distancing, sanitation, and how to curb the spread of the virus initially till we are not prepared. And second, can we have some kind of generic tools, I would say, because vaccine gives you very specific tool to fight. So the world is now kind of developing generic kind of things which can do kind of a stopgap arrangement. Like there is a pan-coronavirus vaccine kind of coming up. There is a research going on a vaccine which can protect against all the coronaviruses. So coronavirus is a very, very big family. So that kind of thing. Or there are bridge vaccines which are, there is a research going on bridge kind of vaccines which kind of take care of till the full-fledged vaccine is developed. So now because of this mRNA technique and new technologies, you have kind of a computer programming of the vaccine. So against what kind of protein because what's happening in these nucleic acid vaccines or DNA, RNA vaccine, it is not the organism which is going on. In old vaccines, it was a weakened organism which was injected or killed organism. Now it is a command which is injected. So that command goes to the cells in the body and it gives the cell a command to produce a particular type of protein which is similar to the virus protein so that there is an immunity. So now this kind of a sequence will help us in whenever there is a disease, it is immediately the sequencing is done. Sequencing doesn't take time. In this case also sequencing was done within a week. So that genetic sequencing is done, code is identified, injected into the person, it starts producing antibodies. So this kind of research is going on for the next generation vaccines which will help us in kind of combating future pandemics, but there will be so many, there are likely to be so many coming up.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your enlightening and conversation. Now, I would request Mr. Abhilash Khandekar to please come forward and felicitate the author and discussant with the memento as a symbol of love, respect, and gratitude. Thank you, gentlemen.